Hey, join me today to interview the beautiful and brilliant Sarah Franklin. She's a nutritional therapy practitioner and works with her clients to get to the root cause of their health issues. She's super fun to talk to and a wealth of information. And if you don't know me yet, I am Jen. I am delighted to meet you. And I've healed so many things on a mostly meat diet that I just want to help you do the same. I hope that today, Sarah and I will be able to answer some of your questions. You guys were so lucky to have Sarah join us tonight. She is a nutritional therapy practitioner, has a ton of experience in sort of traditional healthcare and now this type of keto carnivore world. And so I'd love to start by doing a little interview of Sarah myself, and then we'll take some of your guys' questions. So Sarah, first just tell us who you are and where you came from.
Yeah, so thank you for having me. It was nice. I actually met you at KetoCon, so that was awesome to meet you live and in person. But my name's Sarah Franklin, and I'm from Buffalo, New York. My career started, and I was in pharmaceutical sales. So I have a marketing background, but then, had been with doctors' offices and physicians for almost 20 years with everything from acid reflux to diabetes to heart disease to AFib. So a lot of different disease states. And I was learning all about these things. But myself, I had issues. I had high blood pressure. I was overweight. I was doing everything I thought I was supposed to do. And, just seeing all these patients all the time, the doctors are fat and sick, the patients are fat and sick, like nothing was working. And I didn't understand why. When my hair was falling out and just all of these things happening, I'm like, something is wrong. Like, this doesn't make sense. And once I just, did my own research and kind of started down the keto train, so many improvements started happening. So I just kind of found my own knowledge, went further and further. Dr. Sean Baker with Carnivore really just started popping up that the one January, I'm like, I'm going to try this. And it's been 4.5 years and I haven't looked back. So it's been awesome for me and my health. And because of that, I wanted to be able to help more people because carnivore is amazing. And yet there's still some things that diet can't fix alone. And that's where I went back to school in holistic nutrition to be an NTP because sometimes diet's not enough and the whole body works together. So, is it digestion? Is it blood sugar? Is it, all these things? You could be eating a perfect diet, but if you're eating 15 times a day, that's probably not going to help you, with a lot of your goals. So there's a lot of things that I did. Oh, sorry, my dog is joining me too. But yeah, so that's a little background of kind of where I went back to school and started my own practice so that I can help people with predominantly low carb and keto because that is the best way. And then, carnivore for those that are open to it because it really is, it's the best. Like I say, there's levels. You don't have to get there all at once, but if you want the best for your body, this is really the best there is. So
I love it. And there's already people asking questions in the comments. So I will read off a few of those. And those of you watching, if you have questions, we for sure won't miss them. If you put them in the little question box in the bottom right hand of your screen, there's a little bubble with a question mark. So drop them in there. But a couple I see in the comments, Razor Rob said, I noticed my clients are getting interested in keto, but not carnivore. Do you think it's because they're programmed to think that meat is bad?
yeah, I mean, yes and no. I mean, carnivore is still really new. Like, I don't even think many doctors know about it. Like, I work with cardiologists all day long and they have their shot. They're like, what is it called? Like, they don't even say that. I just say I'm heavily meat based. I eat no carbohydrates. Like, I don't even get into it because it's just so mind blowing to them that I don't need to get that down that rabbit hole unless they really want to. But there is still stigma about meat here and there. And if it sounds like you have practiced something, but there's plenty of resources of why we know that's not true. And my approach being the holistic route, it is more ancestral based, and that's kind of why I say this is a species appropriate diet. This is where we came from. We wouldn't have evolved as humans if we didn't eat meat and fat. So how could something that was so good for us all of a sudden be so bad for us? Is it really the meat, or is it what we're doing, what we're eating with the meat? because you can't pull those things out in clinical trials and all of that. So it's really N equals 1, which is, yeah, how did it work for you? So.
Yeah. Now we have a question about a gallbladder, and that's a very important one. We are going to get to it. Don't you worry. But I want to go up a little bit and ask a few other things. One, Sean Finnegan is a PT2. Hey, PTs Unite. Thank you for watching. And then Herrick R61. I feel like all diets work as long as you eliminate all sugar and processed food. What do you think about that, Sarah?
Well, I disagree, but also a diet. What do you mean diets work? Because I'm one of those person that everybody, when they ask me a question, I'm like, well, it depends. Like that is how I start almost every answer, and because it's not a one size fits all approach. And somebody who's maybe never really eaten that bad and has taken care of themselves their whole life and never had any problems, that might be enough for them to feel good and thrive. But what's their sleep like? What's their stress like? What's their digestion like? So you can cut these things out, but if there's other problems, there's more to eliminate, because it's the ultimate elimination diet to know what is, potentially the problem, but also, what other, how much better could it be? I guess
Sure.
is the other.
Yeah. And to his point, I think that for many people, cutting out sugar and processed foods is going to make a huge change, a huge drastic change.
Yeah.
But for somebody like me who was a binge eater, it was impossible to just completely cut out sugar and processed foods. I could cut them out temporarily and then I would just binge.
Yeah.
So, we're all different. And for many people, that's probably all it takes, but not for everybody.
Yeah. And same, like some people can be a moderator and can, have a little bit, like you said, or if you're just like almond butter or something is maybe natural and not super processed, but you could eat a whole jar of it if it all of a sudden tastes sweet to you. So like you said, it doesn't have to be processed and sugar free, but you can still overeat it. And like you said, if you have binge problems or even other autoimmune problems, there's a lot more going on.
Yeah. Okay, now Urban Survival Arms said, I have no gallbladder, which makes it harder for me to digest meat. Have you come across anyone that has done the carnivore diet with no gallbladder?
I have. The key is, no medical advice here. This is all just background. Everything has to be slow and steady because you can't make a switch overnight. And that's for with or without a gallbladder. If you started eating a ton of fat and meat all in, 1 week, your body's going to freak out. You're probably going to be on the toilet all the time and a lot of other issues because you need more. If you're not eating enough protein and you weren't used to that, you need more stomach acid to break that down. You need more bile. So same thing, but your gallbladder is the bile storage. Your liver can still make make bile. So it's just going to have to be a little bit, be gentle with yourself. There are supplements out there. It's really an issue, but really just integrating that slowly is really key. Is not going all at once, ton of fat, ton of meat overnight, because anybody will have an issue with that.
Yeah, and to your point, I think you've said this, but to be very clear, the gallbladder just stores the bile. The liver is what makes it. And so if your liver is recognizing that you need more bile, it's going to upregulate and it will make more. Now, not overnight, so that's why you have to go slow. And so for some people, that means eating 3 or 4 smaller meals a day versus 1 or 2. For some people, that's more slowly easing into a diet that includes more protein and fat. Whatever works for you, but just know that there is some moderation involved.
Definitely.
All right, what are your thoughts on mushrooms?
For just eating mushroom, I don't eat mushrooms. They're not necessary for anything. They're fungus. They're not. I know there's some people that have said they're maybe carnivore. I don't know if but they're not. Because they're not a vegetable. They're a fungus, or they're in this weird space. But I don't eat mushrooms. I don't know. I prefer meat.
Sure, same. But I think it's whatever. It's not that big of a deal. If someone's like, I've got to have mushrooms or I've got to have onions, whatever, have them. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah.
The next comment, my ADHD is much more manageable when I eat organically clean. Do you guys eat clean meat, grass-fed, pasture-raised, etc.? I don't. So I get some of my meat from a farmer that's grass fed, grass finished, and it's great. I love it. But I also get plenty from the grocery store that's conventionally raised, and I do fine with both.
Yeah,
How
I
about
think it same. When I started, I kind of thought like, oh, you have to have the best, and it has to be this and that, and because there's people out there that'll say that, and it's marginally better, but the best you can afford is the best. Like you said, I get some out of bulk and convenience from a local farmer that it is grass fed for my ground beef because it's just I can buy 200 pounds of it at a time and freeze it. But I think from the grocery store all the time. The ribeyes are honestly better when they're, I think, grain fed because they're fattier and they're tastier. So it's what you can afford, but clean. But that being said, too, also those people with like autoimmune or other sensitivities, some things might not be as, it might be easy to eat that for them. And if that's the case, there's another root cause underneath.
Yeah, and you said N equals one, same thing. So if that person feels best with organic, clean, all that, you should absolutely do that if you can afford it
Yeah.
and you have access to it. It's just that not everybody does.
Yeah.
Now, we have several questions in the question box, so I'm going to go to those. And then I had some questions for you. We'll see if we get to those. They're less important than these live ones. Okay, what is the best argument for keto or carnivore for PCOS?
So they're both amazing. PCOS, for those that don't know, polycystic ovarian syndrome, it's kind of like diabetes of the ovaries, which sounds scary, but it is a blood sugar related issue. And there can be a lot of painful symptoms with that. But either one of them are going to bring insulin down, which is great. And we want to bring insulin down because that's our fat storing hormone, be able to just kind of regulate that. We don't want these peaks and valleys, and carbohydrates are going to spike your blood sugar, which then you need more insulin. So either one of those are amazing. PCOS. And I even had a client recently reach out and say that their doctor actually told them to moderate carbohydrates because of PCOS, which I was shocked about actually. So I think it's becoming a little bit more mainstream that carbohydrates are not great, especially for that, because that means there's some insulin resistance and some other things going on.
Yes, I'm starting to hear that more too from, people hearing that from their doctors. It's so encouraging.
It is awesome.
All right, my friend here, gone down the rabbit hole. What are your feelings on going lion diet?
My feelings on it. So if there's times where maybe somebody feels like they need it. I actually was in a position where I did that for a really long time because I was having a lot of other reactions to things and I didn't know why. And if you're having like these histamine reactions that people say, or just you ate something, you don't know what's wrong with it. And there can be reasons that you may feel better, but that's a symptom. It's not a reason is why that's happening. And that's where I work with people because of that. And myself, like I was that person, like, why are all these things happening? Beef only can be good for a short time. It's really good. It is one of the best foods, but you don't want to be boring and it's not necessary. It can reset if you're having a lot of cravings or if maybe you're eating tons of cheese, and it just kind of refocuses you on eating meat, which is the most nutrient dense, and other things should often be accessories. So if you had pork rinds for dinner, that's probably not a great dinner. And where you might want, that could be a little a little bit of a side, or you're on the go or something, or traveling, that's different. But really focusing on meat and not cheese as like the focus of the meal, that's the best idea. But lion is something that some people do have to do, and it can be good for a short time, but it's not necessary for most. And most people, if you're more of that moderator, you're going to hate it. And if you're an abstainer, maybe it is something you want. So there's really, once again, it depends, my go-to answer.
Yeah, my opinion is if you have a really strong reason why, then it's fine. I mean, it's fine to do anyway, but it's fine to do even long term if you have really symptomatic autoimmune issues, or maybe you just need a reset, you need kind of a new goal, something to kind of inspire you and motivate you. but even like Michaela Peterson, right, the Lion Diet person herself, even she kind of seems to have this opinion that doing that for a while should heal your gut so that you can eat more.
Right.
So keep that in mind, I guess, and then do what you want.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, the person who asked that question, though, is a chef. So I feel like he would get a little bored with it, but certainly for a month or a few months, go
Yeah.
for it. Okay, let's see. In your experience, have you seen women come off Armour thyroid meds? I'm told you can after 1 year.
I've seen that. So it depends. Like, so people, if they're on it, there's not really a time. I don't know. There's nothing time bound with that. There's people, it depending. I mean, if you have a thyroid, that's number one, because you need to have one in order to make thyroid hormone. But there are reasons that it may potentially not be working as best as it can. Are you eating enough fat? Are you having enough cholesterol to make that hormone? So there's a lot of pieces to that. It is something that if you are motivated to get off of, you can tell your doctor, I want to. But if you're also feeling great and it's working for you, you don't have to. I mean, it is going to, what your goals are. I think I actually did that at one point because I thought my thyroid levels were out. But once I started eating enough food, I felt like I didn't need it, and I stopped taking it myself. I did what I wanted to, but I felt fine and everything was normal. So I think it just depends on what you and your goals are. Do you have any
Yeah,
like that?
that is not something I have a ton of experience with. So I was curious what you'd say. And I think we should mention, so you personally experienced PCOS, thyroid issues, acne, I think you said maybe weight gain, hair loss, all of those kinds of things,
Yeah.
right? And that's what ultimately took you down this keto and then carnivore road?
Yeah. High blood pressure. The same thing, like, oh, it's the salt, right? So I did the DASH diet and all this other stuff. And yeah, there's a lot of reasons that, you were told, or the things that I was just thought I had to have forever. I did Accutane, which was awful, and didn't do that anymore, and antibiotics, like just always treating symptoms. And nobody ever said, oh, you're eating way too many carbs. Like the first time my blood pressure was high was after I did Weight Watchers and lost like 25 pounds. So I was like, what the heck? Which means I was eating crap. I was eating like fat-free popcorn and, this fake butter with super, low calorie English muffins. So I was eating all the time snacks, and no wonder. So you can
Yeah.
lean and have a lot of health problems is also the answer.
Yes. Okay, let's see what we got here. Hit a plateau, want to drop more poundage. Oh, this is my friend who was talking about the lion diet. He's hit a plateau and wants to drop some weight, and his wife is gone. So I think it's a little easier for him to do lion when she's gone because he's just preparing food for himself.
Yeah.
So that seems like a great goal to me. July, August, 3 months maybe till she's back. That sounds great. What do you think about that, Sarah?
Yeah. I mean, if you want to try it, look, steak is super easy. I eat it most times, and you could do that for, even a couple of weeks and just see how you feel. And then sometimes you might be like, man, I really want some eggs. Like if you're just focusing on whole foods like meat and eggs, you may find that that's simple enough. But throwing a steak from the freezer in the air fryer can be super simple, or just eating steak for a couple of days. And, it's not only is it tasty, or, ground beef, those are the things I eat anyways, but I do love other stuff too. It's just, yeah, I think it is good. Try it out, see what happens.
All right, this next question, I'd love to give my really small answer and then hear what you have to say. The question is, what would you recommend to flush out your bile ducts? Sometimes I feel sluggish. And I would say, when it comes to food, make sure you're eating plenty of fatty meat, because what's going to keep bile flowing through those ducts is the need for bile to break down fatty meat. So if you're not eating enough of that, it's going to sort of stay static in there, and it can get a little sludgy and gunky. But any other thoughts on that, Sarah, and or maybe supplements or something like that?
I agree the same. If you don't use it, you lose it. Like it's just gonna sit there. It really is easier with just using fat. I mean, there's some people that do like ox bile and things, but I just think that's opening up more cans of worms that then you might be throwing too many variables. That, yeah, same thing. Eat some fattier meat. I mean, if you're having issues where if it's not fat, maybe that might be too much for your body at the time, or like rendered fat. So you can play around with eating solid animal fat, or, you know, cold butter, not melted, and just that can be something too. So things to play around with.
Yeah, and if you're feeling sluggish, as you say,
Yeah.
that doesn't necessarily mean there's something going on with your bile ducts, but it may still mean you're not getting enough fat, so you're not getting enough energy if fat is your source of energy because you're not eating carbs.
Yeah, and people think like 80-20 ground beef is 80-20 when it comes to like a macronutrient amount, and it's not. So like that fat is being drained most of the time, unless you're drinking out of the pan, which most people are not. And it's still pretty lean. That if you're not eating any carbohydrates, most people probably don't get enough fat. I like add a little bit extra in, because there's it's still leaner than you think. And if you eat too lean too long, that a lot of things can go wrong as well.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, here's a long one. My daughter is allergic to everything. She has histamine intolerance and seems to be okay with meat if it's fresh. We freeze thin ribeyes and she cooks them when frozen. Any suggestions to help her? I mean, cooking from frozen is definitely one of my suggestions, which you're already doing. Any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, the biggest ones with that are usually like not a lot of aged meats, or things that are like really slow cooked. While she's having some of that, you can play around, because when people say like histamine reactions, I think a lot of people put everything into this bucket, but it's your body, and an elimination to really try to keep it. I know with a kid it's going to be much harder to, you know, track that, keep it like that, but fresh meat for sure, from frozen, no leftovers usually. That's kind of harder. Just a few things to try, but if she's still having issues, then there might be different foods, and you might be able to, you know, even find out like, oh yeah, she doesn't do well with bacon, but she's fine with pork belly. So the little things to maybe try out.
Yeah, and one thing that's just kind of random, when my skin was really bad with psoriasis and vasculitis, I would find that meat from certain places really flared up my skin. And I don't know that it was aged or not aged, but meat from Aldi, I loved it. It was so delicious and it was really cheap. And it would flare up my skin. I seem to do fine with it now, so this is nothing against Aldi, but maybe that's something to consider, is just getting it from somewhere else and see if that helps.
Yeah, it might have been a little older, or sitting there a little longer. So yeah,
Yeah,
when there's like stuff and inflammation going on, the slightest thing can like kind of push you over the edge. So if you bring everything kind of down and calm a lot of things down, you'd be surprised, you know,
yeah.
what other things more.
We are awesome. We caught up with all the questions in the question box. So if you guys have more, please drop them in the box, but I have some questions for you now. So I know that as a pharmaceutical sales rep, you were starting to notice all these issues, like people were not getting better and they're supposed to be getting better with these meds. And then you realized your own problems were solved through diet. I'm curious, were you still doing the pharmaceutical sales at that time?
Oh yeah, yeah. I was, and I still have responsibilities in some medical, like some account-based stuff that I do in the medical space. So I'm still working with physicians. I
Oh,
have a practice that I talk about. You know, I tell them, and I can't tell you how many of my clients are nurses and doctors because they don't know diet. They have no training in that. I am transitioning away from that as well, but still, it's mind blowing that the little amount that they know. There's a few, so work with cardiologists mostly, and I'll go into a cath lab, and those, for, you know, they literally are like fixing the plumbing in your heart, and they think, you know, is saturated fat is bad, and I bring bacon and eggs for breakfast. And they're all like, oh my God. But I have like a couple of docs now that are keto. They're on the keto train. So they're like, yes, protein for breakfast. And it's not bagels and other stuff. So I'm trying to change things. So like when people say, it's the bacon lady, I love that. I take it as a compliment. But trying to untrain them, or, you know, just because they think what they've been told, but they don't know anything about nutrition. So it's
yes.
a conversation.
So So you kind of got into what I was going to ask. It sounds like it's gone over okay with the people that you've talked about it with. It's definitely a struggle for me too, working in healthcare. I mean, I work in the hospital, and everyone in my department, all the rehab people, they thought it was weird, but they're supportive. And if we have a potluck or something, they always bring me stuff that I can eat. It's so sweet. But I really struggle when I'm working with patients, and one of the doctors will come in and they don't even usually talk about diet. They talk about you should take this statin and you should take these other million drugs.
Yeah.
Maybe they might say decrease your fat. You need to be on a low fat diet. But it's just really hard to see these people with these chronic illnesses and seeing what they're eating, what we're feeding them at the hospital. It's just so hard.
Yeah, the hospital meals, it's like my dad was in there, and I work in the hospitals too. I'm not on the, with the patients, but yet, what they're getting, like a heart healthy diet, like the heart healthy plan is like a bland piece of chicken. There might be some powdered eggs, juice, toast, jello. Like that is so much sugar in there. Like don't eat that stuff. So like I was sneaking him, I was bringing in chicken and beef jerky and other things to have like in his room, or like a protein pot. He wasn't feeling great. So yeah, like a beef protein powder, just something better, because it's so sad. And the food pyramid dictates the hospitals and the schools, and we know it's wrong. A lot of peeling that back, and it's really sad because it's not real food. And yeah, that it makes me angry. But yeah, there's a ton of people out there that it's got to be hard to just bite your tongue when they're saying one thing and you're like, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong.
I know. It's so hard. I try to help them as much as I can. I try not to overstep. I try to sneak in a little bit of information in that area when I can. But anyway, it's ongoing. Now,
No.
when you're working with clients, do you recommend a particular diet, or how do you sort of approach what each person should be eating?
So this is the best piece of why I chose nutritional therapy, and it is based on you as an individual. So when people come to work with me, they fill out like it's over 300 questions, it's a full health history, and then all of these things about symptoms, like everything from do you wake up at night? Are you hungry in the morning? Do your bottoms of your feet itch? I mean, things that you're like, what? Like they're all over the place. And then it kind of buckets them in different areas. And then there's also a 3-day food journal. So I want to know everything you ate, when you ate it, how you felt, what you were drinking. And then we take where you're at and we make recommendations together. We decide how that goes, because what one person, like I might say, oh yeah, this is what I eat every day. But if that's like a totally different thing for you, that's a big jump. So it's really individualized to say, this is where you're at, and what are your goals? What are your top 3 concerns? Maybe one of them's pain, or it's not sleeping, and it's not even that they want to lose weight. I mean, most people want to have some fat loss, so that's usually in there, but not everybody. I had somebody that was having like terrible electrolyte or terrible leg cramps. That was their number one concern, and they couldn't sleep because of it. And so there's other reasons that people will work with me. And it's that diet piece that is such a huge part of like, all right, everything that goes in your mouth 3 days, you're writing it down, you're sending it to me, and is this typical? Is this not? And that's where we go from there, because it's individualized.
Okay. And do most of your clients end up on a keto diet or a carnivore diet, or does it really just vary widely?
So I educate, and I talk about the macronutrients. So we know protein is essential. There's essential amino acids. We know fat is essential. There's essential fatty acids. And by definition, carbohydrates are not really a macronutrient because they're not essential. Your body can make them. So I kind of give that approach and then make recommendations of blood sugar friendly builder ideas, how to build that out. If you are having carbs, they are last, they are not the focus, they are eaten with protein fat to minimize a spike. So there's a lot of different ways, because not everybody's able to get there, or do they want to at that moment, and it might be a big leap. While I do think it's not going to help them, like if you could get there faster if you didn't have them, that's not for me to decide when they're ready.
Sure.
And you know, some people need baby steps and some people are like, overnight, it's gone, eliminated, I'm on to this now. So yeah, it really is based on the person.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
you're
Go
not,
ahead.
are you going to be a NTP? Is that something you are going to share? Or are you?
Yes. I would love to pick your brain because I'm in the program right now.
Yeah.
And so I do have a question. But first, let's get to Terrence's question. Have you dealt with any patients suffering from mold illness?
So there's a lot of, I don't know, there's a lot out there about this right now. Mold is something that your body should be able to detox from. There are other reasons, and I know these chronic inflammatory response syndrome and all of these other things, it's a label. And yes, those treatments will help because you're letting some of the protocol with that is like using a binder to get these things out of your body. That can be a really expensive route, that can be necessary for some. I think there's other ways to do that without that. I've also been working and training on the nervous system, and our brain is the master of everything. It controls our muscles, it controls our emotions, it controls all the autonomic things that are supposed to be happening, like detoxification. And if it's not working properly and we're in this fight flight state all the time, then those processes can't happen. And I even myself was like this perfectionist, had to do everything so much. And like you get so in your head that you're making it worse. And that's something I've had to undo. And this new piece of this neuro reset has pretty much changed my life. Almost as if not more than carnivore. Like the two together, I feel like I could take on the world.
That's awesome. So what I hear you saying is, yes, this whole SIRS and mold illness things it's kind of popular right now. That's not what you said, but I'm saying it's
Yeah.
a trendy thing right now. And so people like Lady Carnivore and Judy Cho, you can get a lot more information on that sort of traditional protocol from them. But Sarah's saying there are maybe some other ways too that if maybe you can't afford that, or maybe you've tried that and it hasn't worked. Is that a fair assessment?
Absolutely. It is expensive because you have to find a certain provider that'll do it and write all these prescriptions and a lot of expensive testing. So it may not be something everyone can do. And yeah, it is. But mold itself has been around. We've been around mold. Like, not that it's great to live in a moldy building. Like, I wouldn't think it's not awesome, but you don't have to necessarily, be freaking out about it either. So that's a big one because I know it is. And if it's helping them, great. And doing well, that's amazing. Like, keep doing what you're doing. And if you have a protocol that's helped you, I just wonder like how you will sustain that if the root cause was never addressed. Now what?
Gotcha.
So that's my only caveat.
And when you say the root cause of why you can't detox the mold like you should be able to.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. So yes, back to the NTP program. I am in it now. It's a 10-month program and I've been in it for like 3 months maybe. I'm learning a ton. It's great.
Awesome.
It's not carnivore at all. I mean, it's like ancestral approach and sort of looking at all the foundations of health and how to get to the root cause of somebody's issues. And so my question for you is, it's not carnivore. So how did you handle sort of the assignments? For example, it's like everything's got to be balanced and you got to make sure you're getting your healthy carbs in there. Did you just do the homework the way you knew you were supposed to do it, but know in your brain this isn't quite what I would recommend? Or how did you do that? Because I'm struggling a little bit.
Sort of. So my professor was really good. And I still made recommendations like on the homework and stuff because usually they would give you so many, if they were eating like pizza and all this other stuff, it was, you made those baby steps, right? And it was like having a protein and a good fat, and then you can have this if you want, if you're having this carb. So I would kind of toe that line. But then when it came to like more patients and stuff, it was like, well, you don't really need to. I didn't push carnivore because like they don't necessarily think that's appropriate, but there's another portion of the program that actually got into other therapeutic diets that talks about ketogenic and other things. So they do recognize that there's benefits like paleo, all these different levels, and it's going to depend on the person. Like most people should not be eating what they're eating. There are no same thing. I would say there's no essential carbohydrates, and but yeah, some of the homework I would kind of just, if it was pizza, like this is a better choice. What's the swap for that? And I would just play along. But other things, like I would put my 2 cents in, and he was always good because I gave my reasonings for it. So
Okay.
yeah.
Well, we're just now getting well, so far I've just been doing the homework with the answers that I know they're looking for, but we're just now getting our first practice client, and mine is going to be a carnivore person. So we'll see how it goes. But the one sort of sticking point that I think might come up is, it's got to be nutrient dense. You can do that with meat. It's got to be this, it's got to be this, it's got to be this. But one of the things they say is you need to have a balanced microbiome, and that you need fiber for that. So I think that's where they're going to give me a little bit of grief. So I'm just preparing for that.
So it's so funny because I have so many people talk about this microbiome and probiotics and blah, blah, blah. Like we don't know what the proper microbiome is. And if the microbes feed off of, like, we know we don't need fiber, right? So I would argue, like, well, do babies don't have fiber, right? They have breast milk, they poop just fine. They have a great microbiome. It's just protein and fat. There's no fiber in there. And they can feed off of ketones. Like there's other things that microbes feed on, and whatever you put in your body is what your microbiome will be, built around. If you don't eat those things, you won't have those certain bacteria. So everyone's is different, and there's not one perfect thing. So that's hard. I know there were times where I kept my mouth shut and just was like, whatever, but the practice client, it's more about, just your recommendations. And I think they know there's more and more people that are carnivore. So it'd be interesting what your teacher, you'll have to let me know what they say when you have your practice client. I'm interested in that.
Yeah, I will. I mean, if they start grading me down, I'll just fib a little,
Yeah.
But I'd like to sort of stand my ground and see how it goes.
Yeah.
My friend Ian says the microbiome is driven by what you eat. There is not this perfect preset microbiome.
Yeah.
Yeah, tell that to the NTP program. They may or may not agree.
It's funny because Judy Cho actually asked me about the program because she had went through it, and that's why, I talked with her and I recommended it. So that was one of the reasons I chose it as well. And she had said she heard they were pushing the Ray Peat diet and some of these other things that are pro-metabolic or whatever it was. And I think it really just depends on like the professor you have, because I had a colleague that she was like, I did not get that much out of, this. And I was like, oh my God, my guy was great. Like I got a great conversation, and he kept bringing it back to, it's about the foundations. Like it's about all these other pillars. Like it's the diet. And we know the most nutrient dense foods are meat and fat. So those are the best for you, and focus around that. And then, what about digestion and hydration and mineral balance and your sleep and, all of these other things that work together as a system. So
yes, we just finished the first one, which is digestion. So I'm excited to get into the others. And cool. Frank's carnivore mentality said, carnivore women have the best looking skin. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, it's the food. It is awesome.
All right, we've got another question here. Oh, okay. This is back. Okay, remember back when we were talking about the lion diet? It's the same guy. He said use dairy to cover for that. I don't exactly know what he's talking about there. This is my friend Steven. So I don't know if he's talking about dairy for the lion diet. That would not be included in a strict lion diet. Can you think of anything else he might be referring to?
I don't know what dairy would be covering for. I mean, if you're doing
I bet he's talking about for the microbiome thing. And he's for my class. And so maybe he's kind of right. I could say kefir or yogurt.
Yeah, but even butter has butyrate, and that is what feeds that. So like butyrate is what they feed off of. And if you skip the step of like with the fiber is like packing peanuts. It goes in the same way it comes out, right? Like it really is not adding anything. And like that is not necessary. So you can, same thing, if you're in ketosis, which a lot of carnivores are, that's feeding those beneficial bacteria, or butyrate, or dairy. Like you can have dairy, but yeah, if you're doing lion, even tallow, like that has it in there. So yeah, all of those good.
If they challenge me, I'm going to reference this video. I'm going to put it in APA format and say, this is my source.
So.
All right. Well, I think we might be getting close to wrapping up the questions. Yeah. So if you guys have any questions, drop them in the question box now and we'll make sure to get to them. Otherwise, we will start signing off here pretty soon. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us. Anything else you wanted to really touch on today?
No, that was everything. I'm just really excited because I met you and you had asked about the NTA, that I was like, oh, I want to hear how it's going. And I'm so glad you're doing it, because I'm sure I want to hear all your feedback, because it was great, and it gives you a lot more just comfort of like why we do a lot of these things. And you get into like, some of the getting light in your eyes at night, in the morning, and just all these things that a lot of the and things that really can help on other levels. So yeah, but I love this, and there's always more, because that's the thing. Like once you're like, oh, well, I didn't learn that, but now I'm going to find this. So now I'm doing another training, and I will be wrapping up with that in the next couple of weeks here, and be seeing some clients for that as well. So yeah,
that's awesome. I feel like I might be on the same path where I just do one thing after another after another. I mean, I already have a biology degree and a doctor of physical therapy, but I wanted something with more of a nutrition focus, and something that wasn't carnivore. I mean, I specifically chose this because I don't want to just learn the carnivore stuff. I want to have a very well-rounded picture. And then if I still am choosing carnivore, then that's awesome. But if I'm like, I might have missed something, I want to know that. And then the fact that Judy Cho did this program, and then I've met wonderful people like you that have done it, that's really helped. Ms. Young 74 wants to know what the program is. So it's the Nutritional Therapeutic Practitioner program through the Nutritional Therapy Association.
Yeah, and then
is that right?
Yep, it is. So I'm a nutritional therapy practitioner, which is essentially holistic nutrition, meaning like the whole body. But the additional training I'm doing too is called Neuro reset technique, which is using the brain to, help control the muscles and recruit proper muscle function if you're having tightness and weakness and soreness. So it's really been a game changer, that when somebody has like a chronic injury or anything like that, we can test it and reset it and pretty much have improvements instantly that are very long lasting. So you're not seeing chiropractors for 10 years and going back constantly. So it's pretty awesome.
Did you learn about that through the NTP stuff, or was that just a completely separate thing?
No. So I had done an interview with Bella, Steak and Butter Gal, and was a guest speaker in her gang, and a girl who did one of their priming and lost, had a great success story. She was speaking the same month. So I listened to it as well. And she was teaching, she does this neuro reset, and she's done it for like 11 years. Her name's Jess, and she's the carnivore mummy, if you ever look her up online. And she's amazing. And I was like, when she talked about it, I'm like, I instantly booked a session. I'm like, this sounds amazing. And then I got hooked, because she's in New Zealand, so we've never physically met. I've only done it online, and it's been a game changer. And then I was able to connect with the guy who created it. His name's Simon Frost, and I have been training with him. He's in the UK, and I'm going to London in 3 weeks to do some hands-on stuff. And then, I will be taking people on. So that'll be really cool. That's
really incredible. So will you work with clients online for that?
I'll do online and in person.
Okay.
Yeah, person stuff, because it is, there's going to be benefits to that, but also, do some online, and we test different things, and it'll be neat.
Well, I'll keep you updated about what I've got going on with the NTP program, and I definitely want to hear what you have going on with this program. In the meantime, if people want to work with you, how can they find you?
Yep. Follow me on In the Buff Wellness, and there's links to my website on there. You can book a free discovery call. I have an online course that's kind of just covers all the basics. If it's like overwhelming, where do I start? But I do one-to-one things, and all of that's it's in thebuffwellness.com, but everything's linked on my Instagram. So yeah, but thank you. And I'm looking forward to hearing how you like NTA, and let me know like how they respond to your first client and if you need any help along the way too. But I'm sure you're going to do great because you already work with people and know way more than most people going in. Like when there were young, new people that was like they just graduated high school, you could tell that they're like, oh my God, what do I do with this? Where it's like, this is easy.
Yeah. With the practice interviews, I mean, there will be like an 18-year-old, and I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, I literally have been doing this every day at work for 16 years, so I think I've got this. But then someone else is like, I don't even know how to speak.
Yeah,
So that's an interesting thing.
it is. All ages. Yay.
Yeah, but we all start somewhere and we all have room to grow. So that's a really cool thing. And anyway, thank you so much for joining me. It's been
Thank you.
lovely, and I can't wait to chat with you more soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And yeah, this was awesome and good luck. And yeah, we'll chat again.
Thank you. Have a good night, guys.
Bye.
Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this. And if you did, please like and subscribe, and catch both Sarah and I on Instagram, where you can connect with us daily.